Hello, it's Chris here from the SME Centre of Excellence. This is our sixth video on the business model canvas template, and today we're going to look at key resources. So that's about what does your business depend on, what can't you afford to lose. Key resources, these are irreplaceable elements, the vital ingredients and components that are required for your value proposition to exist. So if you imagine a game of Jenga, picture the game. You try and gently remove one of the blocks and you get it out. Success is achieved. What we've learned here is that obviously wasn't a key part of the tower. If you remove a block and the whole thing collapses, you found a key part of the structure, which you can't afford to remove, and you probably need to get better at Jenga. This is what makes something a key resource in your business. Without it, your whole business collapses or is more likely to collapse. By listing all of the key resources in this business model canvas, we can help find ways to protect them, back them up, or ensure the business longevity. It just kind of gives us the opportunity to consider and ponder the key resources that are needed in the business, and also kind of come up with some kind of continuity plan or risk assessment plan if any one or a number of the elements are affected. These resources, they could be a person like the founder or a vital team member. It could be a special building or location. It could be equipment, plant or machinery. It could be intellectual property like trade secrets or unique recipes. It could be a patent that stops imitators, or it could be your brand, a name that customer recognizes and trusts over the rest of the market. But interestingly, it's not the same for every business, and even within the same industry, the key resources that drive your business could differ slightly from other operators in the sector. Take, for example, chefs. When we're usually prepared to pay a lot more for a meal prepared by, in brackets, celebrity chef than a regular chef, because it adds to the experience and the story and the overall evening and the stories you can tell to your friends. But that doesn't mean that every restaurant needs to enlist an individual celebrity chef as part of their key resources. Sometimes chefs are replaceable, sometimes they're not, and really the whole point of this key resource element is to identify if the business would suffer or if not fail if you were to remove that key person from the business. The same goes for buildings. If you had to move your operation 300 meters down the road, would your business model still survive? Would it still work? If it would be fine, then that particular building isn't part of the key resource. If it would be a disaster, then we know that the current premises that you operate from are vital to the success. So we would list them in the key resources section on the business model canvas. And so brands are interesting. Is your customer more willing to pay for your product because of the brand? If yes, then your brand is a key resource that needs maintained and attention. If customers don't care, then let's not include our brand in this box. On that brand point, what I would say is that even if you look at the likes of McDonald's or Nike or all the big, huge brands in the world today, you know, when they started off, nobody knew about Nike or McDonald's or Amazon. And so as your business model progresses, as your business matures, as you become more experienced and more effective in sales, it might be that you need to return to this business model canvas. And actually, at a point in time, your brand might become a key resource, something you might want to protect the copyright of, patent, or whatever it might be, in order to protect that brand. These key resources that we're talking about could potentially be expensive to own, but they can be worthwhile. That means it's not worth toying with the idea of outsourcing the less important functions to a key partner, someone who is an expert in that field. So really what we're trying to say here is that we appreciate that key resources can be expensive, but if it's critical to that organization, It's almost like a mathematical challenge whether you can afford it, or whether you take the risk in not affording it at the beginning and look to maybe copyright a logo or perhaps whatever it is at a later date. So in our example here, and I'm just going to try and hover the mouse over it, the key resources area is here. You can see that we've got things like access to finance, kitchen, food, cooking equipment, etc., chefs, nutritionists, and every kind of resource in there. Just want to quickly talk to you about the types of key resources and how they can be categorized. So the first one is physical, although it's not the first one on our example. This category includes physical assets such as manufacturing facilities or buildings, vehicles, machines, systems, points of sales, systems, distributed networks, those kinds of things. Retailers such as Amazon rely heavily upon physical resources which are often capital intensive. Amazon, for example, has an extensive IT, warehouse and logistics infrastructure, and all of these are critical to the operation of that organization. If you were to take Amazon's IT system out of the equation, there is no way that organization could effectively operate as it does, as we know it today. So physical is really one of the key resource types. The next one to talk about really is intellectual property, and this covers things such as brands, proprietary knowledge, patents, copyrights, partnerships, customer databases, all of these kinds of things. They're increasingly important parts of a strong business model. Intellectual property resources are difficult to develop, and we talked about the cost of this earlier, but when successfully created may offer substantial value. Companies like Nike, Sony rely heavily on brand as a key resource. Microsoft and SAP, or SAP depending on how you say it, depend on software and related intellectual property developed over many years. And lastly, Qualcomm, a designer and supplier of chipsets for broadband, mobile devices, phones, etc., built its business model around patented microchip designs that earn the company a substantial licensing fee now. So intellectual property could be immediate, or it could be something that you work on over the long term to create the fees, the value in the organization. The human element. Every enterprise requires human, but people are particularly prominent in certain business models. And while it's difficult to make redundancies, and especially in today's environment with COVID-19 still causing many challenges for SMEs, there may be a select few people in the business that would simply cripple the organization if they left, or if you had to furlough them, or if you had to make them redundant. Just a point of note here, many people think that the higher up the chain of command, the more critical this becomes. But I would urge business owners not to forget people such as caretakers, who may be equally critical, but albeit not at the same level. The number of times I've kind of gone into organizations and recognized that, people such as caretakers are essential to the effective working of a whole organization. There's numerous times I've done that. And lastly, financial. Many businesses need cash for operations or capital projects. It's just fact. If you're going into chip fabrication or jet engine design, you need lots of money to invest in the research, development and plant construction. But as a startup going into a new category, for example, when Uber was a new operation, money becomes a critical key resource, as you lose a whole load of money as you attempt to build market share ahead of your competitors. And so it's really important to clearly identify how much money or finance you think you're going to need at the start, where you're going to get it from, and what are the repayment terms. And lastly, I suppose on this video, the 4 questions for your business that I would ask would be: what key resources does the value proposition require? What are the key resources required by the marketing and distribution channels? Which key resources are required to deliver the customer relationships? And how do key resources support the revenue stream? So just a few questions for you guys to consider when you're out there. Key resources, on the face of it, quite simple, straightforward, but actually, as like most of this business model canvas, the more time and effort you put into it, the greater the output will be, and the more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, the more confident you will be in the model that you're proposing. So that was all about key resources. Hope it helps somebody out there. Probably going to talk about key partners in the next video. So until then, happy to answer any emails on chris@smecofe.com. In the meantime, over and out.